Good afternoon. This is RTC, Richard the Schwalek, which today is going to be titled from the White Fragility TV is Whitey. We will wait till you are ready. We're just going to wait until you're ready to do stuff, because that's important. You want to make sure that Whitey gets what he gets and that there aren't any surprises. Because Whitey isn't able to change that much. He just isn't. Especially the men. They're in power and they'd like to just keep it that way. Because it's important. It's important to society unless we keep it the way it is. Or else go backwards, which would be even better. Because that's when it was what we really wanted. Back in the day, there was some day back there that it was really better for Whitey. Especially the white guys, where they had everything. The women weren't in the workforce, and the black American was kept out of the workforce except for the lower menial jobs. That's the better times. That's when society was really going well. And so we're going to talk about how society changes, how government changes, how workplaces change, and how the police change. A little more specific there. Yeah, because Whitey doesn't want to hear these things. He's got it all set in his head just where it should be, because he believes in Thomas Jefferson, because Thomas Jefferson, we go with it. Hold it, we don't, do we? He wanted everybody to be farmers. He didn't even like factories and stuff, did he? He didn't like the Industrial Revolution at all. But for some reason, we like Jefferson, even though we don't like him. Because if we just say his name, then everything goes cool. Like de Tocqueville was really positive on America. And lots of white guys, especially the pundits, like to bring up his name, de Tocqueville. It came through in like the 1830s or something, right? And de Tocqueville said lots of positive things about the United States, but also he wasn't too fond of factories and stuff because they were treating people nearly like slaves even back in the day. So a lot of things aren't the way Whitey wants them to be, even though they respect the Whiteys. That, yeah, they only respect parts of that, and they cut and paste exactly what they want, exactly down to the T, and they keep refining it because that keeps them in power. And I mean me, not specifically, but me as in Whitey, the white guys. And I'm just kind of the inside person that kind of says, nah, no, we're not. We're not going to do it that way at all. We shouldn't do it that way. I have 2 daughters, and they shouldn't get, no, in the workplaces. It should not be happening. No, they shouldn't be. I don't care what you say. It's just how it should be, right? No, it's not just how it should be. Things should change. When they're not going well, it should change. And we should be able to change faster. Whitey likes incrementalism because that basically means don't change anything until we're ready, right? Just because it's not good to change fast. It's good to go backwards in time and think about stupid things that, no, it isn't, but that's what they think, right? And I'm not the type of person that goes with that kind of standardized, oh yeah, back in the day it was so much better. Because no, it wasn't. For a lot of people, it was not better. Was not. And so we're not going to go back there, ever. And so don't think about going back to that day, because that day ain't ever coming back. You got to move on. But you do stand in the way as big blockheads that won't move because you're fearful. You're fearful society is going to do something that you're not ready for, that grandpapa said wasn't good. You're still saying that, but no one else is but your grandpapa thinking friends. Okay, let's stop that. Let's grow up, quit being so fragile, and be able to take on the new things and see them in a different light. And maybe we'll have real competition in this world at some point. Real competition, not keeping some people out so there isn't real competition. There's a lot of people that think, oh, giving black Americans their due would mean that you would lose out. Well, most likely that would happen in some cases, because if everything was even Steven before, a lot of white guys would not have the power that they have, right? I like how women weren't supposed to be involved with work, but we get women involved in work when we need them involved, like during World War II and World War I, right? They shouldn't be at work until we really need them to help us win battles that we started for some reason, right? Why is that? Why do we do that? Why do we lie about our history? Was it Waltham and Lowell, Massachusetts, and thereabouts? They started the textile industry big time in the United States. And guess what they did? They had women come and work there. And they look for women to work there because they couldn't find anyone else. So the women get to do what we want them to do, but when they want to do it, they can't do it. That's kind of, how do we do that? We do that all the time throughout history. We've lied, made up stories, and then cover them over with layers of whitewash, okay? As in white privilege, washed it, however you want to look at it. White male whitewashed it, and pretend like that stuff didn't really matter when it did. It really mattered. You really needed women to do those textiles because there were no men to work at that moment. And then guess what? Who did those jobs? The women. They couldn't get children to do those jobs, which they would have if they could have, so that's really bad too. But they had the women do them because they were stronger than children. So you had to be like 16, 17, whatever, to get a job there. But they got the women to do it because guess what? They could pay them less. Guess what the men got? They didn't do the stronger jobs there. You know what the jobs they did? The jobs that paid more, like the managing and the the craftsman work. It wasn't harder work. It was not as hard. But the men got it. Why? It's not because they were carrying a 90-pound rucksack like they're in the Marines or anything. No, they just got the easier jobs that paid more. Because white men did that, and they still do it today. Not as much, you're not in the same way, but it's still going on, and it shouldn't. We don't have to wait. We do not have to wait. We do not have to wait 60, 100 years till men finally give up the ghost. Okay, we gotta have a different power arrangement in this country. And against the white richie guy. Making money is fine, but when you have money to overpower people, because of your money in government or whatever, that's not why you should get the big bucks. We should not have that kind of a power arrangement. We should have a power arrangement where workers have more power. Does it have to be unions? I don't know. But it has to be where workers have more power because it is a power dynamic. It is not a money dynamic. I made it all on my own. No, it is, I have the power to make it all on my own. That's what it's power. Almost purely power that comes from. Men didn't make it back in the day because white men, because they were smarter. It's because they had the power. They had the power over black Americans. They had the power, not the smarts, the power. Do some of them on their own in some specific way, in some way that doesn't include that? Yeah, kinda, I'm sure. But overall, the reason they were able to do it leaps and bounds over women and people of color is because of power. So it's not smart. It's not, I did it all on my own, because nobody has done it all on their own, okay? They've always been complicit with the government every time, even in Massachusetts back in the 1810s or whenever they really got started with their stuff. They had power over the local authorities. They even had a riot there, was in 1912, and people tried to send their kids home out of the area for the strike that was going on, and they wouldn't let them. They stopped the trains. The powerful people who had control over the police and all of that. It was power. That's all it is. It's not entrepreneurship. That's not what gives them the ability to make all the money they make. It is their power. Are other things involved in it? Yes, but it's the power that creates the dynasty situation and the overwhelming wages and income and wealth that they're able to contribute to the situation. And that's why society doesn't change. It doesn't change for people who are gay. It doesn't change for people who are from other countries. It doesn't change for people, Black Americans. It doesn't change fast enough because white men have the power to not make it change, period. It's not a better society. It's not white Western thought. It's not Christianity. It is power. Whoever has the power gets it. That's what it is. And unless we change that dynamic, which could have to do with quotas, let's say. And why would I suggest quotas? Because everybody just gets so flippin' angry when they do it. Because that's the only way to change it within 1,000 years. Because there's inertia involved. Unless you block inertia completely and start it to flow a different way, it stays involved in the situation. And it keeps pushing the same plan through, whether it's good or not, whether it's the best one or not. Example of these textile companies is they didn't change. After they got going, like the first 20, 30 years, they for almost 50, 70 years, they didn't change any because they didn't have to. They had all the power. They had all the power in it. They didn't change their technology, bits and pieces, but it quit really massively changing after the first couple decades or so because they had the power not to change, because nobody was competing against them, because they rounded up everything in the country and got at the lead, and they just quashed all change because of that. Maybe not on purpose. A lot of it was probably, but not all of it, because of inertia. And they had the power to just to slow it down. And then you know what happened when people started getting the power over them? They sent it down south, where they paid people less. And then, of course, it went overseas, because then they moved overseas because they could pay people less. And that's power, the reason they have to do that. Why wasn't the technology improved so we could keep it here? Not to keep it away from the third world and such, or other countries that weren't doing as good as us. But why were those companies able to do that? It wasn't because we wanted to be paid less necessarily. They could have improved the technology so maybe fewer people would have worked there, but the business would have stayed here. They didn't think of new things to do. They just went for the cheaper payments to someone else because they weren't very creative. They weren't the smartest bulbs. They were just the cheapest bulbs. Okay? That's what it was. Not in every case, I know that, but in a majority of cases, they had the power, and they either disallowed change or they allowed it when it benefited them. And it didn't. Did some of this benefit society? Has capitalism benefited society? I think you could pull that out of the data, but capitalism doesn't need to do what it does to benefit society, meaning it didn't have to do it this way or that way. It could have done it this way. It could have paid people more. It could have improved the technology. It didn't have to have people in fetid situations. It could have spent 1 or 2 or 3% more of the profits on helping people not be in terrible conditions and, hands chopped off and all these different things. They could have improved safety. They didn't have to, but they had the power not to do it. Not to do it. From, libertarians especially, is, well, then just quit your job and go somewhere else. And Americans aren't made up of nomads, right? Changing jobs and moving from town to town every other month because a company, right? That's not what it is. So there's some kind of combination of things that has to go on. It can't just be the company has all the power to screw everybody's life over. You can't overcharge them for something and say, everybody should make $1 billion a year. That's not good. So capitalism, no matter how good it's done, doesn't mean that it can't be done better. Why can't we do it better? But no, it's because it's done what it's done. That makes it good. That's not true. That's having no counterfactuals to what it could be doing. It doesn't have to pollute as much as it does. It could say, oh, this is dirty when we dump everything into this river, as they did even worse so back in the day. People would just dump their sewerage from these big, huge manufacturing plants. Everybody's taking one crap a day at the company or whatever, and it's all going into the local river, straight into it. They didn't have to do it that way. Somebody could have said, hey, this really stinks. People die. And all these kinds of things. But no, capitalism had to go that route because, boy, otherwise it would have died on the vine. Yeah, that's really how it would have went, wouldn't it? No, that's not. They just ignored it. They pretended it wasn't there. They didn't care because they were making lots of money off of these people that they were screwing over, right? Let's don't pay them anymore. Let's make them work 10 or 12 hours a day and run them out of here. If they can't handle this terrible work, let them go work somewhere else. Because then they brought in more people, more immigrants or whatever, right? I'm half Irish. It was the Irish that came in. After the women wanted to be paid more, they brought in the Irish people. And then they pushed them, and then they brought in someone else, and they just kept ramming them through. And they didn't care. They didn't want to make it good for people. They didn't want people to stay around. They just wanted to pay them as little as possible so they could take it all home. And that's fine, but it doesn't have to be that way. We should have more power. We can take more power, except we've given it away. We've given it away, and we've listened to these lies about how capitalism has made our country. No, people have made our country. Capitalism is a system that we've set up. We can set up a somewhat different system. It doesn't have to be socialism. It could be a little bit different. It could be a lot of bit different, right? It doesn't have to totally tear it down and throw it out. But It could be different. It can be different. And it should be, and it must be different. But Whitey is in power, and he whines a lot. He is the biggest whiner. You know, I talked about defeatism or whatever and victimhood the other day. But it's Whitey. It's Whitey that's the victim of everything. Oh, we can't do that. Capitalism would fail. It's such a fragile, like us white males are fragile. Capitalism is fragile. You can't test it ever. And the rich people got to get richer or else everything ends. The world ends. It just can't handle rich people not getting a cent richer every billionth of a second. Right? It's, the rich, wealthy people, they could be ruined. If we just asked for a dime more a year, oh God, what would happen to them? Those rich people, they would just, it's just so sad. I just feel so bad for them. But they're just lying. They're lying to you about all this stuff. They don't believe in all this other crap. The wealthy don't even believe in democracy, okay? Most of them do not believe in democracy. They don't want us in charge, us meaning we the people. They don't want that. They want 100 senators involved, right? That's why they screw over Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., because they don't want to give any more of their power to anyone else. They want to hold on to it. Every bit of it they can for the next 150 years, 151.2 years, whatever little bit or more that they can get. They want that. And what we're doing is we're just saying, go ahead. Just go ahead. We're tired of it. We'll just be beaten down and it's just taken to the cleaners. We don't care. Because you have the power and that's the way it's got to be. Because we just got to believe in capitalism. Because capitalism is so magical. It does so many magical things. And you got to just let it tear people's lives apart all around the world. Otherwise, the world can't stay here and the wealthy can't keep their money the rest of forever. Right? Oh my God. It's so sad. Let's don't be sad for them anymore. We don't need to be. We can do things differently. I call it the we the people system. That's what I call it. We the people system. And I think it's a good way to reformat society. And so we can get rid of bias in the workplace. We can get rid of discrimination. We can create more diversity. Not diversity for diversity's sake, but because it's good not to discriminate in negative ways against people merely because they're different. Okay? Why do we do that? We're just so weak. White people are so weak, and white men, they're just, oh my God, there's competition. Oh my God, we might lose a bit of or something or other. It's so sad. Well, yeah, maybe you will, but maybe you don't deserve it. Maybe there's a woman, a person of color woman that deserves it, a man of color, any gender, that they deserve it more than you because you just held on to it because of your power, nothing else. But it'll take time, whatever we do, but we need something different than how we do it. It's just too slow. Gridlock that's wrong. It's just freaking wrong, people. Let's get out of all this craziness and move on to something better. We can do that. Keep the Constitution and still move on to something better. But we have to change things maybe in that Constitution. Are we going to confiscate your guns? I doubt it. But we don't have to have people dying as well. We can stop a lot of this without needing to have guns and weapons involved in the situation. We're human beings. We can develop our frontal lobes, right? We can't completely change overnight, and we're not going to all change into utopian beings that love and care about each other every second of every time. No, we can't do that, but we don't have to allow ourselves to just be the OK Corral, shoot 'em up idiots of past days when Grandpapa was an idiot and he shouldn't have been allowed to tell you anything because it was wrong. Okay? That's where we should be. So I'm going to head out here today and I want to say, have yourselves a good one.